Hello, welcome to this episode of Leverage to Build Wealth. This is our very first episode, and we're going to be meeting with the Tom Mancuso. For you who haven't had an opportunity to interact with this man, you're in for a special treat. He's one of my friends, my brothers, and at times mentor as well. Tom's been in the mortgage industry for a good hot minute, but he's been in sales for quite some time. The biggest thing that you're going to recognize is this man's resilience, his resilient mindset. And that's going to be the emphasis today. And so, regardless of what industry you're in, everyone needs to understand, especially coming into 2024, where we have so many different opportunities and obstacles ahead of us, a resilient mindset is going to be crucial. So, with that, Tom, if you can give us a little introduction about yourself and your story, and we'll go right into it.
Thanks, Tommy. Thank you for having me, and happy to be here. A little bit about myself. I started in sales at a young age, 18 years old, started selling cars, and got into automotive finance in my early 20s. And that was the late 90s at the time and early 2000s. 2009, I was in a traumatic motorcycle accident. So my life kind of took a pretty serious detour. Took me a number of years, about 10 years, to kind of really kind of recover from the accident and just kind of get back to a place where I could really get back to work full time and get back into the finance industry. And I got an opportunity to become licensed as a mortgage loan officer in 2019. And I took that opportunity and joined the mortgage business in 2019, and been here ever since.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Um, Tell us about that accident. Does this impacts because there's a lot of accidents that we have in our life, a lot of different kind of injuries. Some injuries you never see. You've experienced something that's pretty traumatic, that's pretty easy to see, and sometimes, or probably often, catches the stares of others and maybe under the breath comments. I mean, that impacts people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was in a motorcycle accident in 2009. I was 28 years old. Used to race cars and motorcycles like my spare time. And one Saturday, middle of the day, just had a kind of a freak accident. A low speed accident only involving me, but it left me with a leg amputation, a number of physical injuries. But most dramatic was I had a traumatic brain injury, which caused me to lose about 90% of my memory for a little bit over a year. And you emphasize something, the physical disability, the leg amputation is very out in the open, very much something that people bring up or point to and feel sympathy. And for me, having to live that way, actually, that's one of the least important injuries that I had. The brain injury was the most dramatic. Losing my memory was devastating at the time. Also, in mix with that, suffering, post-traumatic stress syndrome, depression, anxiety, just a number of really psychological injuries as well. That really took the most time to recover from, and really was the most traumatic. Losing my memory was devastating. Luckily, it took me a little bit over a year to get it back. Lots of therapy and speech therapy and psychologists, and really working on myself. But obviously, the physical disability is what everyone sees. I wear shorts a lot of times. I live in Arizona; it's hot, but I only have one leg that'll get cold. So even in cold weather, I like to still wear shorts. And so a lot of people point to that, right? Because that's the very visible injury that I have, or very visible disability. But it really taught me we all have suffered things. It's typically the unseen scars, it's the invisible scars, the psychological, the emotional scars that we've all endured that are usually the most dramatic and the most serious. And my case is no different than that. It's just I have a physical disability that people can point to and bring up many times. So
You know, I can't imagine. I cannot. Wow. Okay. First, the physical disability, but then also the loss of memory, um, and all that goes with that. The stresses of trying to um, come to terms with a new lifestyle. a new way of life, and how do you move forward. There's a lot of different kind of experiences that people have that either could have been prevented or maybe came out of left field, that impacts them. And I'm a big believer in mindset. I'm a big believer in being proactive, versus reactive. But man, sometimes when life hits you, it hits you so hard, there's no way to see something's coming. And in your accident, is an explanation point to that. But then it's like, okay, something happened, but what then? That's the big impact, that's really I think serves the resilience aspect. Is like, okay, what then? uh how do you go through your process, because you've gone through a lot, knowing you personally as a friend, you've gone through some incredible obstacles. How do you process your what thens?
You know, Dr. Martin Luther King said, if you can't walk, then crawl. Can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. Continue moving forward. And the resiliency comes from just the refusal to give up. I don't want to give up in life, in anything. I don't want to quit. Sometimes that's a negative thing, not wanting to quit or give up. But in life, it, and and a lot of times people will think that I just brush off this accident or the leg amputation, but the only reason why I downplay it and I don't act like it's very serious is because we all have something that happens to us, whether it's physical, emotional, psychological, financial, our marriage, our children. We have deaths in our family, our loved ones may die. I mean, there's lots of things that go on in all of our lives. Pain in life is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And so dwelling on something that happened to you, a tragic event, a loss of a loved one, you know, major financial setback, bankruptcy, anything. Um, the the dwelling on that, the staying stuck on that, the staying woe is me, and not finding a way to get up and continue moving forward, that's unfortunately it's optional. We have to look at things and continue to move forward. We have to find a way to move forward. And it took me a long time. I'm not trying to downplay. I suffered and went through recovery for almost 10 years. Took me a couple of years really to just snap out of a major depression because I thought life was over. I mean, I just didn't know anyone that was an amputee. I just thought my work career was over. My personal life was over. And I was told I couldn't go up my stairway. I had 11 steps in my house. I had a two-story house. I was told I couldn't go up my stairs. I was told above the knee amputees can't climb stairs. But later I would learn to crawl up my stairs. The goal was to get up the stairs. How I get up the stairs really doesn't matter. It's getting up the stairs. So when you lose a job or when you fail at work or your marriage fails, the goal is to keep moving forward. It's to find a way to move forward. At the same time, we have to reflect. We have to look ourselves in the mirror and figure out what can we do better next time. The first place we should look is the mirror. What can we do for ourselves? It's easy to point blame and point fingers and, oh, it's my boss's fault. Oh, the motorcycle. Oh, if if I didn't have the motorcycle, it never would have happened. Sure, but I mean, it actually could have been worse. I'm lucky to have survived.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds tremendous, but if I lose a loan at work, I'm lucky to have a job. I was lucky to have a loan in the first place, right? Colleague and I were talking, Tommy, you know this, like sometimes loans they don't go
Yeah.
perfectly smooth, in our business. Yeah, but I would rather have a loan that has some problems or complications than nothing at all. I'd
Yes.
rather have I'd rather have children that are screaming and crying and not misbehaving than no children at all, or the inability to have children. I'd
Yeah.
rather have a wife and a marriage that I need to work on than be alone the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
So we really have to look at the full picture of things when we look at that.
You sound like you're embodying principles that Jocko talks about in the book Extreme Ownership. It's when you take ownership for everything, you can take ownership of everything. Like truly, if you own all the failures and own the whole process, you own the success as well. It goes both ways. And that's one thing I've seen, working with you firsthand, is seeing how your extreme ownership of things, whether they go sideways, whether they go great, it's you own it and you take pride in that. And I think that's incredible. I got this quote that I saw on Facebook the other day, pulled up. It really stands out. It says, difficult times can define you, diminish you, or develop you. You decide. And it sounds like, that's your philosophy. Like, yeah, bad things are going to happen. That's inevitable. But what are you going to do about it? When it comes to your business aspect, okay, you work with a lot of clients with a whole variety of different kind of backgrounds. I mean, you can be talking to a janitor in one call, and the very next, you can be dealing with the fund manager, for a large company. You can, and everything in between, and in helping everybody. And that's one thing I know about you that's very selfless, is you don't discriminate on the way someone's background is on how you want to help them. And that's actually kind of rare in the finance industry. In the finance industry, a lot of people want to just look for the wells or for the big paychecks. They come into finance and they're just looking for hunting the big paychecks. Whereas I know that you're about helping veterans, doing the very best you can, and helping everybody that comes across your desk. um, how would you say you leverage your personal mindset into your business, especially when you have stuff that goes sideways and in the industry where there's a lot of attrition, a lot of people come and go, how do you deal with this professionally?
Yeah, so I mean, rarely, not a lot of customers obviously know things that I've been through personally, but I do a lot of customers are on my social media and, it comes up. I mean, there's pictures of me on social media, my shorts and etc. Um, Recently, I had a customer that her and her husband, their lease is up, the landlord's not going to renew. They're trying to find a home. They need down payment assistance. Like they just can't find the right home. Every home they find is a unapproved condo for FHA, you know how that goes, or needs a bunch of repairs. They can't get enough seller concessions to help with closing costs. I mean, they're just literally up against a wall. It's this is the sister of a previous client of mine,
Mhm.
and so the agent texted me one night. There's two agents. They're rather new to the industry and say, hey, the client and her husband, they're very discouraged. Can you get on a call with us and just try and talk with them and talk them through everything? And so I get on the call and I just can't help it, right? Like I'm just like, look, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, nothing good is ever easy. Like
Mm,
you're up against,
I like that.
you're up against the clock. Your lease is up. Another lender told you no. You got completely discouraged. Your sister told you to call me. You ghosted me. I gave her a hard time. You ghosted me for a couple months. We got a short timeline. That doesn't mean it's impossible. And you're gonna have to fight. You're gonna have to fight. You're gonna have to look at 20 homes, find one that's even possible. That price point you're in is difficult, but you have to keep the faith. You have to know fighting for your own home, to find your own home, it's going to be worth it. Nothing great, especially owning your first home, to have your own yard for your dogs to run and play in. It's going to be worth it, but it's going to be a fight. And I said, you have agents, these two agents, I talked to both of their brokers on Christmas Day, trying to game plan and strategize how we could get the best deal for them and get their closing costs covered. I mean, I talked to everybody in this brokerage, it seemed. And I'm taking phone calls on Christmas Day, Tommy. Um, but the reason why is because I know this is a family. Like this is not a paycheck to me. Like, I mean, it is a paycheck, sure, and I got to pay my bills, but man, my kids can understand I need to step away for 15 or 20 minutes because I need to help someone find a home for their family. And so I take that very serious, maybe almost too serious. When I get emotional about these things because I fight for them like it's my family or my friends. And so, the agent said, wow, you know, Tom's right, but Tom, man, you should be like a motivational speaker. And I just kind of laughed. And the customer said, Tom, I'm in tears. And the wife broke down. And I said, listen, I said, I helped your sister on refinance during COVID when rates are super low. Your sister was a referral from my dog trainers. The dog trainers trained my service and therapy dog, and that therapy dog was visited hundreds of patients in hospitals
Wow.
that were at their wits' end in their most tragic time in their life. She's also visited hundreds of children, I said, in schools to teach them about service and therapy dogs and pit bulls and how animals can help us. I said, so all of this is paying it forward. And that's what life is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about paychecks or, it's after 5, I'm not going to talk to you, or it's a holiday. No. And so I try to portray that life is difficult and the most amazing things in life take hard work. I'm always one, and this, Tommy, I'm the first person to be willing to help someone else in our industry or on the side of the street. But they got to be willing to help themselves. I can't do anything for them. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I say recovering. I've been sober for 14 years,
Congratulations.
a little bit over 14 years. Thank you. But like any other alcoholic or addict, can't help them unless they want to help themselves. And this business life is no different. Someone buying a home, the agent can't do it for them. I can't do it for them. We don't know exactly what they want or their family wants. They got to be willing to do it for themselves. That doesn't mean that I'm not willing to be there by them side and pick them up when they get discouraged,
Yeah.
but they need to do the walking. I'm there and I'll help hold them up, but they got to be putting in an effort. And that goes for anyone in our industry. And Tommy, you know that. I'm out on helping someone who wants everything done for them. But if you're willing to fight in life or business, I'll be the first person to be by your side.
I think that's incredible. And those who are familiar with your store more intimately, um, and I don't know, you're an incredible visual. You know, when you see someone who's got a robotic leg, well, let's get real, you know, uh, and we're talking about overcoming obstacles. You embody this. When you're talking with clients, I'm like, hey, I understand we can go through hard things, but we're going to do it together. I'm sure your therapist, your physical therapist, and so forth, and your wife, have been there and help out, but there's only so much they can do without your decision. I know one thing that you've expressed to me before that really stands out is give up or get up. And that's a big part of your philosophy. And I think there's a lot of people in this market in this economy trying to figure out what are they doing. There's a lot of people who, with the impending recession coming, they're going to be wondering, do I got a job? Um, what are my options? And a lot of people are going to come to terms and realize they're just going to have to create their own options. Sometimes you can find an opportunity, but often I've found that with entrepreneurs and other people like-minded, um, that you got to just create the opportunity. And that starts with a decision to get up and to deal with the circumstances. And I think you personify that. Okay. Um, within the mortgage industry, or just, I don't know, just any professional industry. I know you were in car sales for quite some time, you know, uh, and you've worked with quite a bit of other companies and a lot of different people who've had opportunities to mentor you. What is some of the best business advice that you've received that helps you with your resilient mindset?
Really, perspective has been probably my biggest tool. And I say that because no matter where you are in business or in life, you always find people who are where you used to be. Whether you're just starting out and you see someone applying for the job, in your industry, or you're rather new to the industry and you see somebody their first day on the job, or you've been in the industry for 10 years and you see somebody who's a couple years in, you know, putting yourself in their shoes is a very, very powerful thing to really remember what it was like to be in that situation. You referenced Jocko, another great speaker and leader in the world, Ed Milet, will talk about, you're most in a position to help someone in a position that you used to be. And so that could be someone who's struggling with alcoholism, so, an amputee who just had their leg amputated or will have their leg amputated in the near future, or someone in this industry. I remember what it was like to be my first broker, and he would go home at like 10 in the morning. He'd been in the industry for a very long time. He had a great support staff. He'd go home at like 10 in the morning, turn his phone off, just be with his family and take the day off. And like almost every day. And he had a bunch of new loan officers. All of us were less than a year in the business, and we all needed help. And we had a branch manager, but he had his own business to deal with. And so we had to be resourceful ourselves. We had to learn to be resourceful, find avenues to get answers and get help. And so, we live in the information age. We have Google and you have the internet. I mean, there
Yeah.
were so many things at our fingertips. I mean, I can't even imagine being in this position like in the 90s, like 30 years ago, or, even in the 2000s, you didn't have the amount of resources at your fingertips. And so, I was listening to a Gary Vaynerchuk podcast this morning. He was talking about he never would have been as successful at his dad's wine shop, his wine business, his liquor store, if he
Yeah.
had the internet like he had today. It's like I would have made too much money too quick and got burnt out, and I never would have had to work for it like I did. And he talked about being on the internet from 8 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning every night, just grinding away.
Wow.
And so when I find someone who needs help, I put myself in their shoes, and again, you'll find people who are cocky or not thankful. I mean, I look for people who are thankful. They're
Yeah.
grateful for the help, even as small as it can be. You know, I always say, you have two eyes and two ears, but only one mouth for a reason. I try and be very observant with people, and I try and put myself around people, regardless of their background, regardless of their position, regardless of their wealth. Just people who are grateful
Yes.
for help, grateful for good people. Good people like to be around good people. And
Yes.
I found in this industry, good people in this industry really don't care for your work experience. I mean, I've had some of the best people, some of the most impressive CEOs, welcome me into their lives as friends, and allow assistance or me to ask them questions or get help from them. And I'm not really sure why. I mean, I joke maybe they have a handicap quota of friends they got to meet or
Yeah.
something, but they're very helpful. And so I try to remember that, right? I try to remember what it's like to need help or need a mentor or need someone to kind of just guide you in the right direction. Again, that doesn't mean do it for them, but it means offer a helping hand, right? Like, when you climb the mountain, you need to reach down and pull someone else up.
Yeah.
Like that's how life is supposed to be. I
I
don't want
love
to be
that.
on the mountaintop alone when I get there. I want to bring all my friends and family up. I want to pull them up too.
Yeah. I love that. It resonates with something I heard in a big thing, which was a podcast yesterday, a training, which is really, really great. And there was this mortgage broker owner. She mentioned two values that she really liked, and I would like to go ahead and adjust that to three that really stands out to me. Is values first, like when you're talking with someone, whether they're a prospective client, where they're especially someone that you're looking at mentoring or wanting to train and take into your company. She mentioned values first. Their values matter. You can use values as well as culture, right? You can use that interchangeably. And then skill sets, because you got to have skill sets to where they can be somewhere. And the last thing you want to do is have someone who doesn't have the right skills in the wrong job, and now you're hurting them. You're hurting the organization. So you want to find the right skills with the right position, but then goals. And so I think those three, that kind of like the trifecta, their values slash culture, their skills, and then their goals. Because if you understand those three, you know what you're getting into, right? And if it's someone that's just about like your shirt says, just rankings, right? If they're, I don't want to sound crass, but a glory whore, the one that just wants the spotlight, man, they're dangerous. Those kind of people can cut corners just to try to save face, and in our industry and in the finance industry in general, you have one file can make or break you, and you're always one file away from jail. Let's get real. If you flip your reputation and your integrity. And so I really like how you mentioned that, because values are so important, because uh, you can train somebody your process. You can train them about your jobs um, acronym and the jobs culture and all the subcategories that you have with all that stuff. But values, man, those are hard to train. You really, that's one of those they got to come with it. If they don't have it, then it's really not a good fit. At least for the kind of organizations I want to be involved with. A strong culture and a strong value system is, I think, important. Um, with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about your mom and your dad. I know when you're 21, you lost your father uh, to cancer, and you have a very resilient mom. Can you talk to us a little bit about how it was growing up, your mentor of your dad, and how that impacted the kind of person you are? What are some of the attributes you own that are part of your DNA that came from your mom and dad? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my dad, when I was younger, we're from Illinois, we're from Chicago originally, and my dad was in the body shop business, a wrecking yard, towing company, and body shop. And when I was like 6 years old, we moved to Arizona to get to a warmer climate, and he came out here and got into the body shop business out here. My mom was a teacher; she taught dance when I was young, and we moved out to Arizona. She became a preschool director, and she was a
Mm,
preschool director for 32 years. And that's obviously attribute my love for children to her. I grew up around preschool and visiting her at the preschool and the kids. My dad was in the body shop business for a while when I was a kid, and then when I was a teenager, unfortunately, his business went out of business, went bankrupt, and we had a very nice, very large home in like Paradise Valley, Arizona, which is a very affluent area. And right before I went to high school, I was in eighth grade. Um, we lost that house. I think it was a short sale. I don't think it got foreclosed on, but it was a short sale. Um, and I'll never forget the person who bought the home. Their dad was Herman Killerberg. If I'm saying that name right, he's a baseball player. And when he was touring the home, he signed a baseball for me. And this was the family that was taking our home. Like, I hated that baseball. Like,
mm,
no, nothing personal against him, and I'm certainly not like upset at him. But looking back at that, like, I'm not really a baseball fan, but I didn't want a baseball from him. I wanted that home, right?
mm,
Um, and so my parents moved us to an apartment across the street from the high school that I would go to in North Scottsdale, a very affluent high school. And so after school, so kids didn't see me walking across the street to the apartment, I would walk to the YMCA down the street. I didn't even have a membership to the YMCA.
mm.
Parents were just in a really tough spot financially.
Yeah.
And so that was tough. My dad went into the car business, started selling cars, eventually became a finance manager and then director, and I grew up around that. And my dad was just great with people. He was just that guy. He was just everybody loved him. He was from South Side of Chicago, grew up building hot rods and
Oh, wow.
doing probably inappropriate things. I don't even want to know all the stories. I know,
Yeah.
at his funeral and his mother's funeral, his mother passed away in Chicago, and we had a funeral for her. And in the neighborhood, a lot of people who I never met in my entire life from all different races and backgrounds and ethnicities came up to me and, knew me already and shook my hand and told me how great my father was and my grandmother. And my dad was just that guy. Like, it didn't matter where you came from or, what background you had. My dad would find a way to build rapport with you. When he had a towing company in Chicago, um, he was given an honorary deputy badge with Cook County um, Sheriff's Department because he would always get to accidents and incidents before the sheriff would get there. And so they actually
Wow.
gave him a badge, and he actually also worked as a sheriff's deputy. And but he taught me so much. He taught me about people and cars. And I mean, I grew up working at a body shop and straightening radiators for Porsches that were wrecked. And I just had a great love for cars and motorcycles and stuff from my dad. Um, and my mom, my mom taught me empathy and care and family values and love. My dad was a great father. My dad was also an alcoholic, though. And so I watched my dad suffer, from drinking, and that became, something that I watched him growing up and struggle with. Um, Unfortunately, I inherited that. I have one brother. He's 8 years older than me. I watched my brother struggle with drugs growing up. Luckily, I never got really hooked or messed around with drugs, but my dad was my best friend. He taught me everything, taught me so much. I love being around him, love being with him. He meant everything to me. And yeah, unfortunately, he got diagnosed with cancer, and 6 months later, he passed away. I was 21 years old, and I struggled with that for years, for sure. It was very difficult. I watched my mom over the years. My mom, watched him die basically. She watched me get in a horrible motorcycle accident, and I lost everything when I got in my accident except for my home. And my mom had to deal with all of that. I took care of my mom financially after my dad died. And we went through a lot of tough times. My mom was a true warrior. Anybody that thinks anything about me being resilient or tough, I mean, that's the woman that's resilient and tough. I mean, um, I'm blessed to have two amazing boys, children with my wife, and I love the fact that my mom gets to see them and spend time with them. And
Yeah.
it's truly a blessing for her also.
Well, I'm personally, I'm a believer, and I can't imagine that your father's not um, looking down proud and often sometimes there with you when you're playing with your kids. I'm a big believer in of that, and that knowing you and knowing the true integrity of who you are, not what other people see publicly, but what I know about you privately, um, that he's proud. You're a great man of integrity. Now you're a bulldog, and I love that. You're not afraid to fight, and that's one of the things that I think is one of your best attributes. When stuff goes down, you want to be able to know who you can rely on. And from a professional standpoint, I can't think of anyone better taking care of your clients than you. Whenever people have the opportunity to work with you professionally, when you tell them something, they can rely on that. You don't sugarcoat stuff. That's one thing I love about you, Tom, is you understand the value of being a straight shooter. That there's no time for BS. But at the same time, as it's like, hey, we got an uphill battle, but we're going to fight it out and we're going to make it work. And that resiliency, exudes from you. You got a confidence. Anyone who has opportunity to meet you in person, they see your smile, they see the swag in your walk, or gimp, or however you want to call it, hop. You know, there is a lot of power in that. And Rene Rodriguez talks about having your presence be known when you leave the room. That the room is still better. And I can't help but to think about that with people of your character. That when you walk in a room, the room gets better. And we all know others, of other people who can walk in a room and it gets colder. The feeling just is different, regardless of how successful or whatever they may have in their life. Some people just bring some kind of energies that just are unsavory. But I know whenever you're in the room and I get to walk in it, it's always fun, so it's good. Um, let's go ahead and shift gears a little bit here. You mentioned you got your two young boys, and it's wonderful watching them grow up. Now that I moved to Idaho, I'm not uh, close to you, but I get to see on Facebook, get to see your family grow, and different fun experiences that you get to share. Uh, how are you conveying as a father about resiliency? I know your boys are still young, but it matters, and I definitely see that. What are you doing as a father to teach your children resiliency?
Yeah. I was just talking with I'm laughing because I was talking to my wife like a couple months ago. I have Giovanni, who's almost 3. Next month, I'll be 3. And Nico, who's going to be 2 in March. And Giovanni got like a paper cut. Sorry, that's Kona, the pit bull. Giovanni got like a paper cut on his finger, and for like 2 days was like, daddy, mommy. Like it wasn't even bleeding. Like it's just a paper cut. And I'm like, bro, your dad has one leg. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Like a paper cut, dude. Like, look at my leg. Like I'm in a wheelchair because I don't wear my metal robot leg at night. Like, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm sorry. She's kind of
Quick pause. Look at your wonderful dog. Now, is that the one that's your service dog?
yeah,
And what's your dog's name again?
Kona,
Kona?
Kona,
Oh, she's
Kona.
oh, she knows you're talking about her too. She's like, "What's going on, Dad?" She's beautiful. I remember when I go visit your office, be able to just give her lots of love, and she's a wonderful dog. But now she knows she's being talked about. But yeah, she's having fun on the carpet there. Sorry, continue on. I'm not
Yeah.
editing that out either because that was cute.
So, you know, I have, as I said, I have that brother who's 8 years older than me. And man, I tell you a little bit about my brother and I growing up. My brother was a black belt, a triple degree black belt, third degree black belt in Taekwondo at 13. And then in high school, he's a state champion wrestler. So my brother was like MMA before mixed martial arts was like a thing.
Yeah.
My brother picked on me and beat me up my entire life. But I'll tell you what, nobody else ever messed with me. As much as it was difficult at home, I knew no one would ever mess with me. I mean, I know my brother had my back. He was also just crazy because he would just want to get into altercations. He was just crazy. Um, but my wife is good about this too. My wife comes from a family with 3 siblings also, and herself. And the love that they have for each other, they're close in age, right? They're 13 months apart. It's very important that I bestow upon them the importance of sticking together and taking care of each other with no matter what in life. And this doesn't necessarily mean blood. And this is one of the things that I think people take for granted. I have a lot of family in the world, and they're not all blood. Many of them are not blood, but they're still my family, and I treat them as such. And I would do anything for them because amazing people come into your life. They don't need to be blood related, but my boys especially, I want them to understand the importance of taking care of each other and sticking together. By each other's side no matter what happens to them in life. If they stick together, they'll be able to get through it, and to have each other through that. And so that's something that I try and teach my boys, and you can already see it in them. There's things that obviously they've inherited. You can't teach. You give them one of them something, and you give Giovanni something. He goes, "What about Nico?" He wants one for Nico, and so you wake him up in the this morning. Wake him up. Gio's eating pancakes. He's got 2 pancakes. He wakes up Nico. He brings Nico a pancake. Nico's in his crib, like he's giving him a pancake in a crib, and so I want to bestow that upon them. But you hear that saying, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, fish, eat for a lifetime. And that's the most important thing. As much as I hope I can, leave them, with some financial resources and something good when I leave this earth. I want to leave them with knowledge and experiences that have taught them how to survive and live in life. And my father bestowed those things upon me. My father explained to me at a young age, never judge anyone based on where they're from or their color or their creed or religion. It's very important how people treat you, and that's how you should judge people and how they treat others. And that saved me a long time. My dad was very much about how you carry yourself in life and how you can control your actions and how you treat others, and that was very important. My father asked before he passed away that I take care of my mother, and I hope I've done a good job of that, looking after her and taking care of her. For a long time I thought that taking care of her was only financial, and I could not have been more wrong. So I want my boys to understand that taking care of each other and taking care of others does not just mean financially. It means emotionally and things like that as well. So um, I can already see it in them, which is amazing. Um, I'm very proud of them both.
Well, that's awesome. That's very cool. Um, the past 2 years, the mortgage industry for mortgage professionals, it's been a recession. May not be the case universally, but it's a pretty broad stroke, how the market's been impacting our industry. What do you do to stay positive, especially during challenging times, to keep you moving forward and help strengthen your resiliency? What are some of maybe your daily or weekly things that you do to keep your mind right so you can be the dad you want, so you can be the leader that you want? What are some of the things you're doing? Kind of give us a checklist or something like that, kind of a regimen of what you do to keep your mind right to be resilient.
Well, I mean, when tough times come, it's important to remember where you've come from and the things that you've been through and the things that you've survived. I mean, we've all been through challenging times, trauma, suffering, loss. Everyone has a different story, but everyone has a story. And so that's sometimes why I disregard people, making comments about my own, because we've all been through something. And, they say the worst thing to happen to you is the worst thing to happen to you. And so while my accident and my loss is traumatic and tough, but someone else might have been through something completely different. And that's truly the worst thing that they've been through. So always remembering where you've come from and what you've dealt with in the past is very important. It's also important to remember that if business is difficult, remembering what else you have in life. I'm struggling and there's been several months where I've had no loans. I'm not sure how I'm going to pay my bills. And I look at my boys and I look at my wife, my family, and I'm rich beyond measure. I mean, I
Yes.
never could have thought ever in my life. I dreamt for so many years of having a family and what I have now. And so for me to get completely depressed or sad, distraught about having no loans. So you have to remember, all that you do have. I
Yes.
like to say the glass is half full. Somebody told me that after I lost my leg, but it's true. Look at the positives of things. You can dwell on the negative or you can think about the positives. If you're grateful, if you think about the blessings you have in life, it will change your mood. Simon Sinek talks about you can't be depressed or saddened or distraught and proud at the same time. And so that's very important to put yourself in a position where you're grateful for things and you think of those things that you're proud of and you're grateful for. Daily, I truly a lot of people probably think I'm crazy for some of the things that I do. Discipline has really helped me in life. Discipline has probably saved me in life. And a lot of people know I spent some time in a state penitentiary for a DUI, and that is a very disciplined situation. But discipline is something that's helped me. And if you listen to David Goggins, who's someone I truly look up to, he talks about really putting yourself through pain and suffering to get on the other side. Um, and so, wake up super early in the morning. I'm usually up by 4:30. My boys go to school about 7, and right now I put on a 30-pound weight vest, and I take Kona for a 2 to 3 mile walk Monday through Friday, regardless of the weather, rain, cold. This morning it was 38 degrees. Past couple of days been 30 degrees. And I walk, and there's a lot of benefits to solitude, to be alone with your thoughts
Yeah.
and alone with your problems or alone with your struggles and to think through them and process them and think about the options that you have. Identify the problem or the challenge and what options do you have? Not what emotions do you have associated with those problems? What options do you have to move forward? And that's truly been something that's helped me. There's a lot of solace in solitude. That's something I've truly embraced. For years, I've always worked out alone for that reason because I want to be with my mind. Um, Same thing with hiking. I love to go hike for hours at a time just to be alone in nature, in
Yeah.
the wilderness by myself and my problems, my struggles, and really to push myself through those things. And if you're, Jocko talks about this, Jocko always takes a picture of his watch, like 4:15 in the morning, because he wakes up early and pushes himself physically. And that's something that really, it shows you what you're capable of. And I don't
Yes.
mean you to go do a huge workout or some powerlifting workout. No, literally I'm walking. You have a 30-pound vest, but whatever. I mean, you could just walk. And there were times I couldn't even walk a block without having extreme pain. And so by pushing yourself through that, it shows you what you're capable of. And so whether it's physical or whether it's spending time reading and being alone with your thoughts, our mind is a very powerful thing. And so it's important to do that. I spend a lot of time reading and listening to audiobooks. Last year alone, I listened to almost 100 audiobooks, podcasts. There's so much information out there. I also started doing cold plunge. I started getting in my 30-degree pool or 34-degree pool for a couple minutes, and same thing. It shows you what you're capable of, and that's what life's
Yeah.
about, right? You have to prove to yourself what you're capable of. You have to prove to yourself what you can survive and push through, whether that's losing a loan or not having any loans and still putting on a smile and helping someone else, or whether that's losing a leg and being able to get up and walk and learn to walk again, or whether that's just helping someone else after a tough day, or coming home to your family after having a horrible day at work and putting a smile on and greeting your family. Your family are never going to at your funeral talk about the professional you were in business. They're
Yeah.
going to talk about the person that you were. They're going to talk about the father that you were, the mother or the brother or the sister. I know at my dad's funeral, I didn't talk about how great of a
Yeah.
professional he was. I talked about the best friend that I had. I talked about the man that taught me everything. You know, I was proud for a long time. I didn't cry at that funeral. I was tough. Then for years, I would get drunk and I'd make my friends drive me to the cemetery and I'd jump an 8-foot brick wall and I'd go sit outside of his grave in the middle of the night and I'd cry. I actually got caught one time with the security of the cemetery, and he asked me what I was doing there. He told me I was trespassing. He was calling the police. And I pleaded with him, "Sir, I just lost my dad. He's my best friend. I just want to be alone with him." And he said, "Okay, well, just don't leave anything there." He let me go there. I mean, and so that's what people remember. People remember the person that you are. They remember how you touched their heart. Another Gary Vaynerchuk thing is he talks about depth, not width. And I try to remember that with customers, with my friends, my family, depth, not width. It's not about touching the most amount of people in life. It's about touching who you do make contact with as deep as possible, making a deep connection with them, impacting someone as deep as possible, as humanly possible, make an impact on them. Sure, I wish I could do, 100 loans a month, but that's probably never going to happen. That's okay though, because the one or a couple loans that I do, I want them to make them feel like they mean everything to me because they do, not because of the paycheck, because of they allow me to help them and their family. And I want to play a small part in that for them.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, that's powerful because you're talking about what kind of person are you wanting to be? And I think that really matters is what's the kind of person you're trying to be. With that being said, how do people get a hold of you? We'll wrap this up. If someone wants to reach out to you direct for whatever reasons to be able to get a wonderful mortgage and get that incredible service and that resilience with you, to talk with you about whatever, how can they get a hold of you, Mancuso?
Yeah, my website is mancuso-mortgage.com. You can find me on Facebook, Tom Mancuso, Instagram, IHOP Loans. Or I do have a YouTube page for our YouTube channel, Tom Mancuso. I need to do some more videos on that. Maybe you can help me with that, Tommy. I struggle with technology sometimes, but I love when people reach out and share their own stories with me and share how they've overcome challenges. Obviously, it's great when people reach out for business, but it's nice to hear stories of other people and how they've overcome major challenges in life because those things resonate with me and those things help me. I think about a lot of people have touched my life because of their stories. And that's something that, and so many times, we might help someone else, but we're truly helping ourselves. And so that's the benefit of that, right? Is you pick someone else up and you actually stand up a little bit taller when you do that.
Yeah, it is powerful. Well, it has been a pleasure as always, Tom. And I recommend anyone has opportunity when they see you in person to give you a big old hug, and when they have an opportunity and need to reach out to definitely do so. Their time will be well blessed and well worth it. All right, my friend. God bless you, and I look forward to next time I get to see you.
Thank you, Tom.